Hello. Hi. I just bought a new microphone and I'm really excited about it. Yes, I am here to do something for the ride or dies for the midweeks. Ayo, this is alcohol. That was stronger than I expected it to be. It's pineapple basil seltzer. So I was supposed to be working, as I'm often supposed to be working, and then I ultimately do something that is not that. And because I was incredibly iron deficient and didn't feel like actually doing anything that I was supposed to do, I ended up spending the last less than 48 hours, the last like 36 hours watching documentaries. I've done one other video talking about documentaries, like comfort documentaries, ones that I like return to. But today I'm going to talk about the 10 I watched in the last 36 hours because I was on a roll. These include one-shot documentaries. Most of these, though, are like limited series. So each documentary is like 3 or 4 hours, which I gotta say, impressive. Actually, most of them were the same day. I did 8 of them. So I thought I would kick back, drink some seltzer, and talk about each of them. I'm going to try to not spoil them. Like, I'm going to talk about what they're about. So if you know the case, you'll know the gist of what it's about. But there are certain like aspects about them that I don't want to spoil because some of them are a lot. Actually, I think all of them are true crime in one way or another. I'm intrigued by true crime. I think it's very fascinating in that it kind of forces us to look at the darker parts of our society and how we deal with certain aspects of society. But with that said, I've seen a lot of true crime and in a way have built up a certain level of tolerance. Some of these, though, actually stuck with me really bad. But before we get started, if I'm not mistaken, today's video is sponsored. So let's send it over to Admiral Kennie. It's the same day. Hello everyone, it's Admiral Kennie to let you know that today's video is sponsored by NordVPN, the virtual private network that I personally use to keep my downloading, my searching, and my general browsing needs safe and secure. Whether you're looking at personal information on your bank server, out in public, it's good to have a VPN so that you know that your data is encrypted so that it's not being sold to third parties, so that your internet provider can't be all up in your business. Feel free to download it on any of your devices, including phones and tablets, so that you're always safe no matter where you go. Because NordVPN allows you to connect to servers in over 59 countries. If you want to browse as if you're in a different country, you can just click like that and there you go. Now you're in Portugal. Now you're in Brazil. Wherever you want to be, you're there right now. And if you'd like to check them out, they'll be linked down below. Go to nordvpn.com/Kennie and use code Kennie to get a 2-year plan with a huge discount. Big thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. This is in no particular order. They're just written down because this is how I wrote them down. So the first documentary I watched was Blood Brothers, Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali. I wanted to watch that because spoiler, if it's not up already, it will be. I did an IDO for my podcast on Muhammad Ali, the movie Ali that had Will Smith in it in 2001. And the movie's fine, but it did like leave some supplemental information absent. Like I knew vague information about their relationship. I guess I just didn't know they were that close, nor like how that tied into certain other social political movements. And it talks about their relationship. It's no spoiler if you know what happens between Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and their relation to the Nation of Islam and Elize Muhammad. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. It did the job of what I was looking to do, get more information specifically on this relationship. And it was really interesting. It's just like a one-shotter. All of these, if I'm not mistaken, I watched on Netflix. I was just going through and I was just binging a bunch of them. So, and then after that, I saw in the recommendation, Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, which is a limited series. And I said, oh, they've made a documentary about the FLDS stuff. Good. Because personally, within the last few months, I've become more and more interested in fundy snark stuff, like kind of really looking into fundamentalist religions and cults in the United States and how those affect politics in particular in a very disturbing and scary way. Shout outs to Fundy Fridays. They tried to take her channel down, but they ain't gonna take my sister out. Anyway, she don't know me. Anyway, Keep Sweet specifically is about the FLDS cult that was led by Warren Jeffs. I do vaguely remember the case when it was happening. It was happening, I want to say in like 2005, 2006. Very long story short, it is incredibly disturbing, but FLDS is a fringe subsect of Mormonism that still believes in polygamy, and particularly in there being a prophet who ordains marriages. A lot of these marriages are not between legal adults. It's a whole ass cult, and it's really disturbing. Warren Jeffs is a creepy and they have audio tapes of him, like his preaching and everything, and it's just like, it's bad. It's very like the People's Temple. They didn't all die though, but there's this vibe that I wouldn't be surprised if it had happened. It's just really disturbing. And not for the faint of heart. That one's a limited series, so that's like 3 or 4 episodes. So if you want to watch that and think you could handle it, given the subject matter, it's well done, like the documentary itself. So while I was finishing that up, a friend of mine called me and she said, have you seen this Rachel Dolezal documentary? And I was like, why would you say that? Because I'm already on a roll right now. So they made a documentary about Rachel Dolezal, or Dolezal. The woman that, give or take 8 years ago, was found out for not being Black, and she was the head of the Spokane branch of the NAACP and was telling everybody she's Black. It became this thing about the concept of transracialism, whether or not a white woman can become Black. And this documentary takes a look at Rachel now, you know, getting a bit of her side of the story. This documentary is probably one of the most frustrating ones I've ever seen. I don't even know where to start. This documentary is, I think, pretty balanced. It definitely gives her more of a voice than I think she's ever had in any other space, and whether or not you want to hear that voice is up to you. But I don't think it completely absolves her from the ludicrousness of this entire conversation, and it also doesn't absolve her from the true harm that she has perpetuated against Black people. But what it does do is it gives us a bit more of context of why she is the way she is. I do have empathy for her. I feel sad for her. As I understand it, her believing that she's Black is a trauma response to some very traumatic events. I feel like I should spoil it because otherwise it just makes me sound like I'm giving excuses for a woman pretending to be Black. So spoiler if you care. Rachel was the biological child of 2 white people who, you know, one of those will adopt your baby white people, and they adopted a bunch of Black kids because they were less expensive. We won't get into that today because this country sucks. Anyway, the Black people were cheaper, so they adopted a bunch of Black kids. Incredibly abusive to these Black kids. One of the Black siblings basically says they were whipped with a baboon whip by their white parents. Rachel kind of became a bit of a protective figure over her siblings and mentally disassociated from whiteness because of her white parents, then put on Blackness as like kind of a shield with her white abusive parents. That's my non-professional psychological analysis. And like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Doesn't make it okay. Yeah, I mean, I struggle too, so I'm Black. And it's like, do you think being Black is struggling? Is that all you think being Black is struggling? Like, I would understand it more if she had a bit more of like this racial identity crisis, if she were like the white adopted child of Black parents. That would make sense to me more. It still doesn't make you Black, but I can understand culturally how things could be a bit more confusing for a person in that context. But like, this woman was raised by whole ass white people. Anyway, long story short, her parents ended up outing her as biologically white, and this is the component that was like, oh, ooh, interesting. Basically, one of the Black sisters accused a biological child of the parent, so a white man of sexually abusing her. She goes to Rachel saying like, hey, they won't believe just me. Can you back me up? And she says, yeah, I'll back you up because he did it to me too. So they both say, yes, we're going to come forth with her story. And in an effort to discredit her, the parents came in and said she's lying about everything. She's even lying about being black. Now, and I remember at the time it being kind of weird that her parents were outing her, even though like, yeah, you shouldn't be lying about being black. But I'm like, your parents told on you? That seems fishy. And come to find out it was because they were trying to protect a rapist. I have a lot of empathy for what she's gone through. I understand that this is probably a traumatic response for her and a maladaptive coping mechanism to disassociate her abusive childhood. But in the process, she has hurt every black person around her by doing this. She's hurt that sister because now she can't bring her case for it. Everyone, when they discredited her, they discredited the sister. She's hurting her black children. She's hurting black people that you could do so much good for. I spent way too much time on that. So then after that, I ended up watching The Girl in the Picture, which is another true crime documentary. And this one is also a limited series. The Girl in the Picture is just a confusing story about a woman who is found dying, and she ends up dying and they don't know who she is, where she's from, how she died. There's a lot unpacking around who she is, where she came from, and I don't want to go too deep on it. Follow the way that they ended up finding out who this person was, who this woman was, and how she died and what her life was. It was shocking because like it's one of those ones where it was a crime going on for 20 some odd years. This crime was undealt with. It's a winding, weird story. And I can't really tell you everything that happens anyway in a way that's better than just watching it, because you follow how each puzzle is put together to kind of figure out who this woman was and what her story was. But it's a lot. So prepare for that. Okay, and then after that, I watched The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson, much in a similar way as I was watching the Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali one. I just wanted to get more supplemental information. I realized that I didn't know the specifics of a lot of things I realized in regards to Marsha P. Johnson and how she relates to like the ongoing conversations around how trans people are pushed to the sidelines of the LGBTQ movement. Isn't that how it goes, isn't it? How trans people of color started the gay rights movement and were pushed to the wayside by white cisgender gay people. Marsha eventually kind of became one of many black martyrs in all forms of civil rights and social advancement. I cried. It's also woven together into someone who is currently trying to solve Marsha's murder to try to see if they could uncover more information in regards to what really happened to Marsha. But I did like that it also gave like a lot more of like a human view into Marsha. To be honest with you, I've kind of only seen like kind of photos of Marsha and not enough of just like seeing her personality and how she was on stage and how she was in full drag and how she was just unapologetic and so funny. Our Father is a documentary about a Dr. Klein who was found to have been artificially inseminating a ton of women who came to him for fertility treatment. One of the many children that he ended up having realized that after she went on like a 23andMe type website, she had like 11 siblings, and slowly but surely, as a random person in the area signed on to 23andMe, She got more and more and more and more, and they all started to put together that they were all from the clinic and they were all related to Klein. It's basically the story of how they tried to bring him to justice and how they found out about it in the first place. He is a disgusting fuckhead. I'm not gonna spoil like how they went about to do it. It was very, very interesting, and like they were being true sleuths, but it's just disturbing because like they were kind of talking about the fears that they had in relation to it. Like, you don't know who you're related to, and we're all in a similar area. What if you dated your brother and you didn't know? This motherfucker's putting his baby bed everywhere. What do you do if you find out like your husband is your brother? Like, what do you do? And it's just terrifying, you know, and not as illegal as you think it should be. There's also like an element of this also being in some way in relation to like fundamental creepy white supremacy quiverful bullshit as well. And that's that on that. Watch it and be mad. Tinder Swindler. I'm late on this one. The Tinder Swindler is about a guy who has been conning women out of so much money by essentially meeting a woman on Tinder, wooing her in a way that I would find terrifying, but y'all, okay, wooing her, sweeping her off her feet, and slowly gaslighting her into taking out loans and sending him money because he's claiming that he's in danger and he's gonna be killed by whoever, his enemies in the diamond business, or his enemies here and his enemies there. And they talked to several people that he got millions of dollars from doing this. It was a wild thing to watch because I was confused in every direction. What he would kind of do is ask you to take out a loan for like a big amount of money. You decide to do it, or you get like a credit card in your name or a loan in your name or something. You send it to him. You start to get worried, but he pays you back in full, and sometimes like several times over what you owe him. He's like, oh, no, this is nothing. Because when you first meet him on the first date, you go on his private jet and you see all this money he supposedly has. So you're like, he's good for it. He's good for it. And then you loan him more money, and suddenly this time he can't pay you back. And now you stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars in loan debt, and he's off spending your money on a different bitch in a different country. And the cycle goes on and on. This is the reason why I have trust issues, because he was lying. He was lying in a way that was disturbing. Like, whoa. He ends up having like a bunch of girlfriends at the same time who are all sending him money, and he's all yelling to them like, I'm gonna die if you don't send me money. And then you still breathing, so you're just fine. This is another one that made me mad, but at least no one died. But okay, Bad Vegan. I thought this was going to be more interesting, and the way I'm going to describe it is going to sound more interesting than it actually was, but this shit was boring and it was very long. I think that was it. It's not boring. It was just drawn out. It was like 4 episodes and it didn't need to be that. They could have got it done in like a hour, 45 minutes, but they draw on for so long. But it's the story of this woman who ran a super high-end raw vegan restaurant who ends up getting conned by her husband into taking out a bunch of loans, and he don't even spend it on other bitches as far as we know. He spent it on gambling. Least you could do is buy something nice. You went to a casino? God. Anyway, and there's a lot of bullshit through it. He gaslights the shit out of her. I still don't understand what the line of logic was, but basically like, keep giving me money so that these random people will look down upon us highly, and your dog will never die, and we'll be these like eternal celestial beings if you keep giving me money. Like, I don't know. They were like, it's a test to prove you're worthy. But when it all boils down to it, they're not becoming celestial beings. You're getting charged for fraud and unpaid wages. So the last 2 are both limited series, actually. Elize Matsunaga, Once Upon a Crime. This is about a woman in Brazil who married a billionaire heir. They get married and she finds out that he's cheating on her, and she kills him, dismembers his body, and sprinkles parts of him in the woods. So, and in this documentary, she gets interviewed while she's on a temporary leave from jail. So this is her telling her side of the story for the first time ever. This was interesting. It had a lot of angles you could look at it. It was reading very like timely, I guess, in regards to certain conversations that we're having around misogyny and criminology, and how misogyny plays into how we understand a trial. But Elize confesses to the crime, so it's not like she's there trying to say that she didn't do it. She said she did it. Based off of the same story, the prosecutor and defense can create a very different, with the same facts, can create very different narratives around that information, and it was up to the jury to kind of decide what that ultimately meant. I'm gonna leave that there because there's a lot to unpack there. I think that one was also quite well made. Could have been a little shorter. I think we could have done with 3 episodes instead of 4. I think there was parts that could have definitely been cut out. It became like a giant story because A, he's a billionaire, and B, she was a sex worker or a former sex worker. So, you know, misogyny. They tried to discredit her as a person because she used to do sex work. That's not the issue here. One narrative is her being like a premeditated, cold-blooded murderer who wanted to make him suffer, and when she found out that he was cheating on her, she planned this whole thing out. And then the other one is like, I was driven to temporary madness because I found out the love of my life was cheating on me after he said he wasn't, and I lost it and I dismembered him because how the hell else am I supposed to get him out the apartment? I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. That's not funny. I'm so sorry. But that's literally what they said. She was like, not her, but like her friend was like, how else was she supposed to get him out the apartment? And I'm like, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. I've never tried it. I don't know. And last but not least, we have the House of Secrets, the Burari deaths. Oh my God. Like I said, I'm no stranger to true crime. It takes a lot to really to rock me sometimes. This one is probably the only documentary I've seen in a while, probably since Don't Fuck with Cats, that I just sat there staring at the screen. Because this one's rough. It takes place in India. A family, 3 generations of people, 11 people, were all found dead from what appeared to be a mass suicide. But there's a lot that doesn't fully suggest that. And also, even if that was what happened, why? Like, why would this happen? This one rocked me. This one made me feel really sad at the end. This one leaves you with a lot of haunting questions about a lot of things, not just about this case, but just like how we define certain acts, how we make peace with certain things, and just like that mass grief, how we engage with media surrounding those who die. I think that's a conversation that's coming up a lot, the kind of sensationalization of true crime in particular. Like, my little opinion about that is like, I don't think that not covering things like true crime benefits us in any way. Like, the main people that enjoy true crime or engage in watching and listening to true crime are people that are likely to be victims of crimes. There's a value to knowing maybe some signs, if possible, of being in an abusive relationship or being in like an unsafe situation. So I don't think we benefit from saying, let's not talk about cases at all. I do think some people are weird. Oh my God, the night stalked this person. Like, what the is wrong with you? Like dead ass, please go get some help. Stop it. This particular case became very, very sensationalized because there were so many unanswered questions. It became kind of fabulistic and almost caricatured in a way. And that on top of what actually happened, it's just so much. It's also a series, so there's several episodes. I think it's 3 or 4. Yeah, I don't tend to get shaken by a lot these days, but that one got me. That one really got me. I was sad. Like, I felt empty at the end of it. There's evidence to suggest it was murder, and then also evidence to suggest that it wasn't. There's evidence to suggest that maybe it was accidental deaths. Also, there was some intention there. There's also elements of how religion and mental health played into it as well, in a way that just leaves you really unsettled at the end. It left me feeling that way, like just like general emptiness. So I say all that to say, Be careful watching that one because that shit makes you feel existential. So anyway, yeah, that's the 10 documentaries I've watched in the last 2 days. Now I have a few more on the list, and if you want to hear more that I end up watching along the way, I will send that your way eventually if you want to see another video like this. I did this like several months ago, so I didn't know if anyone cared anymore, but if you liked this video, feel free to like this video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram, Twitter, both of which are KennieJD, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.